Saturday. I'm almost a whole day old now. I arrived yesterday. This as it seems to me, and it must be so. For if there was a day before yesterday, I was not there when it happened. Or I should remember it. It could be, of course, that it did happen, and I wasn't noticing. Very well, I'll be very watchful now. And if any days before yesterday's happen, I'll make note of it. It'll be best to start right and not let the record get confused. For some instinct tells me that these details are going to be important to the historian someday. For I feel like an experiment. I feel exactly like an experiment. It would be impossible for a person to feel more like an experiment than I do. So I'm coming to feel convinced that that is what I am. An experiment. Just an experiment, nothing more.
Monday. This new creature with the long hair is always in the way. It's always hanging around and clinging to my side like scum on a pond top, and I hate it. I'm not used to being around others and don't plan on getting any more comfortable with it.
Tuesday. I followed the other experiment around yesterday afternoon, at a distance, to see what it might be for if I could. But I was not able to make it out. I think it is a man. I have never seen a man, but it looked like one, and I feel sure that is what it is. I realize I feel more curiosity about it than any of the other reptiles. If it is a reptile, and I suppose it is, for it has frowsy hair, brown eyes, and it has no hips. It tapers like a carrot. It spreads itself apart like a derrick. So I think it is a reptile, although it might be architecture. I was afraid of it at first, and I started to run every time it turned around, for I thought it was going to chase me. But by and by, I found it was only trying to get away. So after that, I was not timid anymore, but tracked it along, several hours, about 20 yards behind, which made it nervous and unhappy. At last, it was a good deal worried, and climbed up a tree. I waited a good while, then gave it up and went home.
Wednesday. Oh my God, it never shuts up. It seems like every 30 seconds it has a new, useless thought. I know that it sounds harsh and that I'm being overly critical, but I have no ill will towards the experiment. I just enjoy my own space. Going from complete solitude and serenity to non-stop and shrill speaking is a shock, and it's not like it's a faint or a far sensation. No, it's right in my ear, and revolves as it bounces around the garden.
Thursday. All week I tagged around after him and tried to get acquainted. I had to do the talking because he was so shy, but I didn't mind it. He seemed pleased to have me around, and I used the sociable "we" a good deal because it seemed to flatter him to be included.
Thursday. Cloudy today. Wind in the east. Think we shall have rain. We. It's beginning to rub off on me. The incessant talking has taken over my own vocabulary.
Monday. This morning, I told him my name, hoping it would interest him, but he didn't care for it. It is strange. If he should tell me his name, I would care. I think it would be pleasanter in my ears than any other sound.
Monday. It says its name is Eve. That's fine by me. I have no complaints. Eve says to call her by it when I need her help with something. At first, I said it was superfluous, as I really don't need any help. Especially not from someone as erratic as the experiment. But I might as well get used to using it. It'll make it easier for the both of us. It also says that it's not an it and that it's a she. All these new words and specifications, I wish she would just realize that it's all the same to me. I don't really care.
Tuesday. He talks very little. Perhaps is because he is not bright. He's sensitive about it and wishes to conceal it. It is such a pity that he should feel so, for brightness is nothing. It is in the heart that values lie. I wish I could make him understand that a loving good heart is riches, and riches enough, and that without it, intellect is poverty.
Sunday. Pulled through. This day is getting to be more and more exhausting. It was selected and set apart as a day of rest. I already had 6 of them per week before. This morning, I found Eve trying to clod apples out of that forbidden tree. Key word, forbidden.
Sunday. It is up there yet. Resting, apparently. But that is a subterfuge. Sunday isn't the day of rest. Saturday is appointed for that. It looks to me like a creature that is more interested in resting than anything else. It would tire me to rest so much. It tires me just to sit around and watch that tree. I do wonder what it is for. I never see it doing anything.
Monday. Surprise! Not only does she not stop talking, but apparently she doesn't stop eating either. If she doesn't stop, more than likely we're gonna starve. We again. That's her word. Mine too now from hearing it so much. To make the day even better, there's a good deal of fog too. I choose not to go out in the fog myself, but Eve has no problem with it. She goes out in all weathers and stomps right in with her muddy feet without a second thought. And talks. It used to be so pleasant and quiet here. I'm definitely not as happy as I was before.
Wednesday. We're getting along very well indeed. He does not try to avoid me anymore, which is a good sign, and shows that he likes to have me with him. That pleases me, and I study to be useful to him in every way I can, as to increase his regard. During the last day or two, I've taken all the work of naming things off his hands, and this has been a great relief to him, for he has no gift in that line, and is evidently very grateful. He can't think of a rational name to save him, but I do not let him see that I am aware of his defect. Whenever a new creature comes along, I name it before he has time to expose himself by an awkward silence. In this way, I have saved him many embarrassments. I have no defect like this. The minute I set eyes on an animal, I know what it is. I don't have to reflect a moment. The right name just comes out instantly, just as if it were an inspiration, as no doubt it is. For I'm sure it wasn't in me half a minute before. I seem to know just by the shape of a creature and the way that it acts what animal it is. When the dodo came along, he thought it was a wildcat. I saw it in his eye. But I saved him, and I was careful not to do it in a way that hurt his pride. I just spoke up in quite a natural way of pleased surprise, not as if I was dreaming of conveying information, and said, "Well, I do declare, if it isn't the dodo." I explained, without seeming to be explaining, how I knew it for a dodo, and although I thought maybe he was a little piqued that I knew the creature when he didn't, it was very evident that he admired me.
Friday. Not only does she talk and eat too much, but she gives me zero chance to name anything myself. Eve names literally everything in sight before I can even get a syllable out, and she always says the same thing. It looks like the thing. There's the dodo, for instance. Eve says the moment one looks at it, it sees at a glance that it is like a dodo. I guess it'll have to keep that name. There's no point in confusing the both of us. Dodo. Looks no more like a dodo than I do.
Sunday. It has low taste and is not kind. When I went there yesterday evening in the gloaming, it had crept down and was trying to catch the little speckled fish that play in the pool, and I had to clod it to make it go up the tree again and let them alone. I wonder if that is what it is for. Hasn't it any heart? Hasn't it any compassion for those little creatures?
Monday. Eve taking the reins on naming a few creatures was fine, but she still hasn't stopped. I had picked out the perfect name for my little haven, and it was musical and pretty. The Garden of Eden. When I'm by myself, I still call it that. But when I don't, I don't when she's around to avoid conflict. She says it's all woods and rocks and scenery, and therefore has no resemblance to a garden. Says it looks like a park. This is sufficiently high-handed, it seems to me, and there's already a sign up. Keep off the grass.
Friday. The birds and the animals are all friendly to each other, and there are no disputes about anything. They all talk, and they all talk to me. But it must be a foreign language, for I cannot make out a word they say. Yet they often understand when I talk back, particularly the dog and the elephant. It makes me ashamed. It shows that they are brighter than I am, for I want to be the principal experiment myself, and I intend to be too.
Monday at noon. If there's anything on the planet that she just doesn't like to talk about, or touch, or smell, it's not on my list. There are animals that I just don't care or think about, but it's not the same with Eve. She loves every little thing. It's like she's created trillions of little boxes in her heart for each one.
Sunday. I tried to get him some of those apples, but I could not learn to throw straight. I failed, but I think the good intention pleased him. They are forbidden, and he says I shall come to harm. But so I come to harm through pleasing him. Why shall I care for that harm?
Tuesday. She's talking with snakes now. The one thing that these animals and I have in common is the immediate relief we felt when we realized that she wouldn't be bothering us anymore. Maybe I can finally get some rest now. Thursday. I swear she spits out just any little thought that comes to mind. This time she's going on about how she was made from one of my ribs. If this isn't crazy, I don't know what is. Friday. She says the snake told her to try the fruit of that tree, and that she'll get a great and fine and noble education. I told her there would be another result too. It would introduce death into the world. I probably should have kept that part to myself, but there's no going back now.
At this point, Adam and Eve, after eating the forbidden fruit, have been expelled from the garden. In the following, they share their experiences of life without the safe haven that they had become accustomed to.
When I look back, the garden is a dream to me. It was beautiful, surpassingly beautiful, enchantingly beautiful. And now it is lost, and I shall not see it anymore.
Next year. We've named it Cain. She caught it while I was up country trapping on the north shore of the Erie. Caught it in the timber a couple miles from our dugout. It looks like us in some ways, and there may be a relation. That's what Eve thinks, at least. But this is an error in my judgment. The difference in size warrants the conclusion that it's a different and new kind of animal. A fish, perhaps. But when I put it in the water to see, it sank, and she plunged in and snatched it out before there was the opportunity for the experiment to determine the matter. The coming of the creature seems to have changed her whole nature and made her unreasonable about experiments. She thinks more of it than she does any of the other animals, but is not able to explain why. Sometimes she carries the fish in her arms half the night when it complains. Eve doesn't work on Sundays either, but lies around all tired out and likes to have the fish wallow over her. And she makes fool noises to amuse it and pretends to chew its paws, and that makes it laugh. I've never seen a fish that could laugh. Wednesday. It's not a fish. I cannot quite make out what it is. It makes these curious and devilish noises when not satisfied, and says goo-goo when it is. It's not one of us, for it doesn't walk. It's not a bird, for it doesn't fly. It's not a frog, for it doesn't hop. And it's not a snake, for it doesn't crawl. I feel sure it's not a fish, though. I cannot get a chance to find out whether it can swim or not. I said I believed it was an enigma, but she only admired the word without understanding it. 3 months later. It's finally stopped lying around and has started trying to walk on its 4 legs now. Although it has 4 legs, it is nothing like the other 4-legged animals we've encountered. This freakish way of walking has caused the main part of its person to stick up uncomfortably high in the air, and this is the most unattractive thing I've ever witnessed. The difference in leg lengths has swayed me into thinking it's part of the kangaroo family. 3 months later. The kangaroo still continues to grow, which is very strange and kind of stressful. I really just want to know what it is. It has fur on its head now, not like kangaroo fur, but exactly like our hair, except that it's much finer and softer, and instead of being black, it's red. 5 months later. It's not a kangaroo either. It now supports itself by holding onto Eve's finger, and thus goes a few steps on its hind legs, and then falls down, which is the most joyful thing of this experiment. It probably is some kind of bear. A fortnight later. I examined its mouth. There's no danger yet. It only has 1 tooth. It has no tail yet, but it makes more noise now than it ever did before, mainly at night. I've moved out, but I go over mornings to breakfast and to see if it has more teeth. If it gets a mouthful of teeth, it'll be time for it to go. Tail or no tail, for a bear does not need a tail in order to be dangerous. 3 months later. I've been off hunting and fishing a month. Meantime, the bear has learned to paddle around all by itself on its hind legs and says papa and mama. This imitation of speech, taken together with general absence of fur and entire absence of tail, sufficiently indicates that this is a new kind of bear. 3 months later. It has been a weary, weary hunt, yet I have had no success. In the meantime, without stirring from the home estate, she's caught another one. I never saw such luck. I might have hunted these woods 100 years, and I never should have run across that thing. The next day, I've been comparing the new one with the old one, and it is perfectly plain that they are the same breed. The old one is tamer than it was, and can laugh and talk like the parrot. I think I'd pass out if it turns out to be a new kind of parrot. The new one is as ugly now as the old one was at first. It has the same sulfuric and raw meat complexion, and the same singular head without any fur on it. She calls it Abel. 10 years later, they're boys. We found it out long ago. It was the coming in that small, immature shape that puzzled us. We weren't used to it. There are some girls now. Abel is a good boy, but between us, if Cain had stayed a bear, it probably would have improved him. After all these years, I see that I was mistaken about Eve in the beginning. It is better to live outside the garden with her than inside without her. At first I thought she talked too much, but now I should be sorry to have that voice fall silent and pass out of my life.
40 years later, it is my prayer, it is my longing, that we may pass from this life together, a longing which shall never perish from the earth, but shall have place in the heart of every wife that loves, until the end of time. It shall be called by my name. But if one of us might go first, it is my prayer that it shall be I. For he is strong, I am weak. I am not so necessary to him as he is to me. Life without him would not be life. How could I endure it? This prayer is also immortal. It will not cease from being offered up while my race continues. I am the first wife, and in the last wife I shall be repeated.
At Eve's grave, wheresoever she was, there was Eden.